Chapter 1408. For the next 1,000 years, Yi Chen didn't step into hell. He was waiting for the three-sword intents to advance to the 9th level. At that time, his strength would increase by leaps and bounds. He might not be able to fight against a demigod, but a demigod wouldn't be able to kill him easily. This wait lasted for another 500 years. On this day in the sky above the 9 revolution star, Sword Chi soared into the sky, and the three-sword intents appeared. They were the immortal and indestructible white immortal sword intent, the destructive black destruction sword intent, and the radiant sword intent that radiated boundless light. As soon as the three-sword intents appeared, the surrounding dozens to hundreds of light years fell into an extreme silence. For a moment, no one could even feel the existence of the laws of the heavenly Tao. What a terrifying sword intent! All the Supremes looked at the Tianqian continent where Yi Chen was. 9th level sword intent. Heavenly Sovereign Zhuyang's eyes widened. After becoming a supremacy, everyone's martial intent would be stuck at the peak of the 8th level. Only after becoming a demigod would they be able to raise their martial intent to the 9th level. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that a 9th level spirit body and 9th level domain couldn't compare to a 9th level martial intent. If the spirit body was like a home, the 9th level domain was like a border defense, and the martial intent was like a commander, like a king that controlled everything. 3 9th level sword intents? How is this possible? Supreme Skyhook was so shocked that he almost bit his tongue. He had never been so shocked in his life. At this moment, all the Supremes finally understood how terrifying Yi Chen was. Possessing one supreme sword intent was already enough to make him a genius among geniuses. But Yi Chen had 3: Immortal, Destruction, and Radiant. With 3 supreme sword intents gathered in one body, who in the same generation could compete with him? Unprecedented since ancient times. Sword Saint Bai Ji let out a deep breath. Even if Yi Chen's sword intent had reached the 9th level, it wouldn't be able to compete with him. His sword intent had already reached the mid-stage of the 9th level, but it wasn't a supreme sword intent. Instead, it was an extreme sword intent that was equivalent to the slaughter sword intent. This is rank 9 sword intent. As his sword intent had just broken through, Yi Chen was still unable to fully control it. Strands of sword intent spread out. There was the immortal sword intent, the destruction sword intent, and the light sword intent. The 3 great sword intents didn't interfere with each other. Wherever the sword intent went, a large amount of soil would turn into earthen yellow swords. A large amount of air would condense together, turning into swords of air, and a large amount of light would condense into swords of light. In this world, as long as anything came into contact with Yi Chen's sword intent, it would all be turned into swords, and Yi Chen didn't even have to think about it. I see. Yi Chen finally understood how Sword Saint Bai Ji had managed to turn a planet into a sword. It was the effect of sword intent. Above the 9th level was the true God will, and the universe will. True God will, and the universe will were omnipotent. Although the 9th level was far from it, it still had unfathomable abilities. Gradually, the scattered sword intent was retracted. In Yi Chen's soul ocean, the 3 great sword souls were lined up side by side. The destruction sword soul was so black that it didn't have any form. The immortal sword soul was like a white crystal that would last forever. The light sword soul was a sword soul formed from endless light, billions of times more dazzling than the sun. The light it emitted didn't have any impurities, and was pure and dreamy. The sword intent is tempering the soul. Suddenly, Yi Chen discovered a shocking scene. In his soul ocean, the immortal sword intent first shone with a white light, sweeping through the soul ocean again and again. As the immortal sword intent swept through, Yi Chen found that the purity of his soul ocean was getting higher and higher. It was like a liquid made of melted crystal. 1 month passed, and the strength of Yi Chen's soul had increased by more than 100 times. It was like he had eaten a great tonic. In the 2nd month, the destruction sword intent continued to sweep through the soul ocean. If the immortal sword intent was said to be increasing the soul's strength, then the destruction sword intent was said to be clearing out the impurities in the soul. If the impurities merged with the soul, then the destruction sword intent would directly destroy a small part of the soul, as if it was removing a tumor. Finally, it was the light sword Intent's turn to sweep through the soul ocean. The light sword Intent was the most gentle. When the light sword Intent swept through, the soul ocean seemed to be bathed in sunlight, becoming lively and active. 1 year passed, and Yi Chen's soul ocean turned from silver to gold. If the gold Yuan spirit was equivalent to the eternal Yuan spirit, then the gold soul could also be called the eternal soul. This was the soul that only demigods had, and ordinary beginner demigods might not even be as pure as Yi Chen's soul. With the current strength of my soul, I'm afraid even a demigod wouldn't be able to kill me with his soul. After becoming an honorable, soul attacks and will attacks were usually supplementary. In a battle of the same level, soul attacks and will attacks could at most affect the opponent. It was basically impossible to destroy the opponent's soul. However, existences one level higher would be able to destroy the opponent's soul. The most frightening thing was that after one's will reached the 9th level, the combination of soul attacks and will attacks was incomparably terrifying. It was equivalent to a double attack, and it was impossible to defend against it. Back in hell, when Yi Chen attacked the Yin Dragon Mountain's protective array, he was attacked with the will of the 9 Yin Ghostly Sage. If not for the fact that it was not the 9 Yin Ghostly Sage's true body, and that Yi Chen had the Netherworld Divine Eye, perhaps Yi Chen's soul would have been destroyed, and he would have died on the spot. It was fine if one's soul attacks and will attacks were not strong, but one's soul defense must be strong. Any weakness could bring about a fatal disaster. Golden soul, such a clear mind. In an instant, countless sparks flashed above Yi Chen's sea of soul. These were intelligent electric currents, sparks of thoughts. The stronger the sparks of wisdom, the stronger the calculation and comprehension ability. The golden soul gave Yi Chen the comprehension and learning ability of a demigod. It was not as simple as strengthening his soul. The heavens are really helping me. Yi Chen couldn't help but shout. Originally, he was a little depressed. He clearly knew where the golden supremacy was, but he couldn't save him. Seeing that the deadline to enter the primal chaos battlefield was approaching, Yi Chen was actually very anxious. Now all the problems were easily solved. Given a period of time, Yi Chen was confident that he could raise his strength to a new level. At that time, together with the 3-star heavenly sacred treasure, the firmament sword, he should be able to fight against the 9 Yin Ghostly Sage. Another 1,500 years passed. There were still 15,000 years until the primal chaos battlefield. Based on the Netherworld Divine Eye, Yi Chen created a secret technique that attacked the soul and will, the Sword of Hell. The Sword of Hell contained a soul attack and will attack. The will attack was divided into 2 parts. One was the destructive sword will, and the other was the will of hell. When the 3 were combined, the killing power was abnormally shocking. It was not an exaggeration to say that no one below the demigod level could block the Sword of Hell, unless the opponent's soul was a golden soul. Update tomorrow. My nephew is going overseas. He went to Nantung for 3 days and just returned. Update tomorrow. Sorry. Chapter 1409. Without any hesitation, Yi Chen entered hell once again. The reason why he dared to enter hell was not because he had the confidence to fight against the 9 Yin Ghostly Sage. That was basically impossible. The 9 Yin Ghostly Sage was much stronger than the average Ghostly Sage, and was born and bred in hell. Even though Yi Chen's sword will and soul had improved by leaps and bounds, he was still no match for the 9 Yin Ghostly Sage. He was only confident that he could escape from the 9 Yin Ghostly Sage. The Golden Soul allowed him to better utilize the mysteries of space-time ultimacy, and the 3 Tier 9 Sword Wills increased his survivability. As for the Sword of Hell, it was his trump card. It was the only trump card that could threaten demigods or ghostly sages. Yi Chen's luck was not bad. The 9 Yin Ghostly Sage had not returned yet. Perhaps he did not think that Yi Chen would dare to enter hell again, and was in no hurry to return. Unfortunately, he was wrong. Sword Venerable Green Lotus, you are courting death. The 3 Yin Ghostly Lord looked at Yi Chen in disbelief. He knew that the Yin Dragon Mountain was protected by the power of the 9 Yin Ghostly Lord, and still dared to come again. He was crazy and reckless. 3 Yin Ghostly Lord, we meet again. Activating the Underworld Divine Eye, Yi Chen saw that the golden supremacy was still in Dragon Mountain. He heaved a sigh of relief and greeted him. "Sword Venerable Green Lotus, let's see how you escape from hell this time." The three ghostly lord did not come out, but stayed in the ghostly temple. "After rescuing the golden supremacy, I will naturally leave hell. Open." Unsheathing the firmament sword, Yi Chen slashed at the Dragon Mountain with a heavy sword style. The heavy sword light was like a divine light that could split the heavens and earth, unstoppable and unstoppable. Rumble! The protective array of Dragon Mountain shook violently, and then a giant face appeared. The giant face was filled with rage. "Since you are here, don't leave." Two gloomy rays of light shot out from the eyes of the giant face, and shot towards Yi Chen. How could Yi Chen not see that this eerie light was condensed from the power of ghosts? Ghosts were the product of the soul and the will of hell. They were formless and incorporeal. They were more mysterious and stronger than soul power. Ordinary attacks were unable to injure ghosts, just like how ordinary attacks were unable to injure souls. Below the ghost monarch rank, all ghosts were condensed from the power of ghosts. They had form but no substance. After becoming a ghost monarch, they would begin to condense a ghost body, which was equivalent to the body of a life form in the outside world. However, the ghost body was actually a variation of the power of ghosts. The eerie light flashed and disappeared into Yi Chen's soul sea. In that instant, tens of thousands of ghosts howled above Yi Chen's soul sea. If it were an ordinary supremacy, his soul sea would definitely be devoured cleanly, leaving nothing behind. But Yi Chen was no ordinary supremacy. The golden soul sea rippled, and the thousands of ghosts found it difficult to swallow. At the same time, the three sword spirits were enraged, releasing a terrifying storm of sword will that swept towards the thousands of ghosts. Like spring snow meeting the blazing sun, the thousands of ghosts melted away. Under the assault of the three great sword wills, the ghost power of the ghostly sage could not hold out for long. What? Golden Soul 9th tier sword will? Because he had not paid enough attention to Yi Chen. The ghost power that the 9 ghostly sage had released contained a sliver of consciousness. As the ghost power was melted away, this sliver of consciousness also collapsed, blurring the giant face. But it also let him know the changes in Yi Chen's soul sea. The ghost power could not do anything to Yi Chen. The giant face on the protective array broke away, taking on the appearance of the 9 ghostly sage. Very good. No wonder you dare to step into hell again. The 9 ghost sage was a skinny, cold-looking middle-aged man. He wore a black cloak, which did not have a specific shape. It looked like black ink that stretched out endlessly. However, Yi Chen, who had the underworld saint eye, squinted his eyes. From this black cloak, he could feel a trace of fear. This feeling was like seeing a sky saint weapon. If Yi Chen had guessed correctly, the black cloak should be a heavenly ghost treasure. Of course, it was not the real body. The real body was definitely with the 9 ghostly sage, and the 9 ghostly sage and the black cloak were both illusions. 9 ghostly sage, I have no intention of becoming enemies with you. I only hope that you can release the golden supremacy of Dragon Mountain. He is no threat to you. Releasing him should not affect you. Unless it was absolutely necessary. Yi Chen did not wish to become enemies with the 9 ghostly sage. Sword Sage Baiji and Demon Sage Jalua would not be willing to offend the 9 ghostly sage either. Before he became a demigod, or before he could match a demigod, he did not have the right to go against the 9 ghostly sage. I will naturally release him after 1,000,000 years. You don't have to worry about that. What you should worry about is how you will escape from hell. The 9 ghostly sage stared coldly at Yi Chen. Pardon me. Against the 9 ghostly sage's real body, Yi Chen did not have much confidence. Against the 9 ghostly sage's illusions, Yi Chen still had some confidence. The hell sword was not just for show. Wielding the firmament sword, Yi Chen used the black hole stance to kill the 9 ghostly sage. His spacetime ultimacy was perfected, and the black hole stance's power was not inferior to the heavy sword stance. The 9 ghostly sage laughed coldly. He grabbed with his hand, and the black hole stance shattered. The 9 black holes dissipated before they could form. A ghostly lord had the power of a ghostly lord, and a ghostly sage had the power of a ghostly sage. Whether it was the power of a ghostly lord, or the power of a ghostly sage, they were both a combination of the power of a ghostly spirit, and the power of a ghostly body. Go! After breaking Yi Chen's sword technique with one move, the Nining ghostly sage waved his right hand, and a large amount of white light shot towards Yi Chen. Bone-piercing nail. One of the Nining ghostly sage's ultimate moves. Ding 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 ding. There were too many bone-piercing spikes, and Yi Chen could not completely seal them all. After all, to seal the bone-piercing spikes, the real body of the firmament sword had to be used. The illusions formed by the firmament sword could not block the bone-piercing spikes at all. They could only block 1% of the bone-piercing spikes. The remaining bone-piercing spikes all landed on Yi Chen's body. However, to everyone's surprise, the power of the bone-piercing spikes did not penetrate Yi Chen's body. Besides his Tier 9 sword Will, the Golden Soul, and the Hell Sword, Yi Chen dared to come to Hell. He also had something to rely on, his Immortal Sword body. The Immortal Sword will had broken through to the Tier 9 level, and Yi Chen's Immortal Sword body had reached the 16th level. It was enough to block an attack from a quasi-demigod. Coupled with the Black Tortoise sacred armor, even a beginner demigod could not do anything to Yi Chen. The Nining ghostly sage before him was just an illusion, and naturally could not break through Yi Chen's defenses and directly attack Yi Chen's martial Dao primordial spirit. What a surprise, to combine a Tier 9 Immortal Sword will with a body refining technique. The Nining ghostly sage was surprised once again. The bone-piercing spikes were specialized in attacking one's primordial spirit, and to a certain extent could ignore defenses. However, this was only to a certain extent. Yi Chen's Immortal Sword body contained the Tier 9 Immortal Sword Will, and with the protection of the Immortal Sword Will, it was extremely difficult for the bone-piercing spikes to penetrate his defenses. It could be said that Yi Chen's Immortal Sword body was almost flawless. It could block normal attacks, and it could also block attacks from nothingness. However, this was also because Yi Chen had the Immortal Sword Will, and other sword wills could not do the job. Chapter 14:10. Yellow Spring's Finger. As one of the 10 sages of Hell, the Nining ghostly sage had many tricks up his sleeves. The bone-piercing nail was only one of his ultimate moves. In comparison, the Yellow Spring's Finger was even more overbearing and unstoppable. He raised his right index finger, and a dark, cold light gathered. The air was visibly frozen, and the cold air exploded, spreading towards Yi Chen. The power of the 9 underworld frost. Yi Chen was shocked. The 9 underworld frost and hellish fire were the most terrifying things in hell. Both were split into 9 grades, and anyone who could refine a high-grade 9 underworld frost or hellish fire could use it as their trump card. From this unique cold air, the Nining ghostly sage's Yellow Spring's Finger had clearly refined a high-grade 9 underworld frost. The cold air grew endlessly in his body, forming a source. Combined with the Nining ghostly sage's ghostly sage power, it was unimaginably terrifying. Not daring to let the Yellow Spring's Finger touch his body directly, Yi Chen roared, activating the true defensive power of the Xianwu divine armor. Dark underworld sky. A phantom of a Xianwu formed, enveloping Yi Chen. In the next instant, the Yellow Spring's Finger landed on it, freezing the phantom of the Xianwu into a block of ice. However, Yi Chen was not affected. A heavenly sage treasure armor? The Nining ghostly sage frowned. It was already extremely lucky for a legendary figure to have a heavenly sage treasure. This kid actually had 2, one for offense and one for defense. It was perfect. Forget it, I'll take him down first. Although he could not hurt Yi Chen, it did not mean that the Nining ghostly sage could not capture Yi Chen. The two were not the same. Heaven and earth shrouding. Nining ghostly hand. The Nining ghostly sage soared into the sky, the cloak on his back expanding into a sky full of black clouds. Before Yi Chen could react, he had been enveloped. Although this cloak was only a phantom of a heavenly ghost treasure, it was activated by the Nining ghostly sage's ghostly sage power. Its power was maximized, unlike Yi Chen, who could not bring out the true power of the firmament sword and the Xianwu divine armor. Enveloped in the black cloud of the cloak, Yi Chen felt his spirit being blinded, unable to sense the existence of time. Then, a pale ghostly hand grew larger and larger, reaching out with unavoidable speed. Radiant sword will break for me. In the face of desperation, Yi Chen was calm. In his spirit sea, the radiant sword spirit vibrated violently. Then, a dazzling but not blinding light spread out from Yi Chen. The radiant sword will was open and upright. Although it was not as indestructible as the immortal sword will, nor did it have the killing power of the destruction sword will, with it, light was everywhere. Under the assault of the radiant sword will, cracks appeared in the impenetrable black clouds. The radiant sword will leaked out through the cracks, allowing Yi Chen to sense the time and space outside. Heaven and earth roam. There was no time to lose. Yi Chen used the heaven and earth roam movement technique and escaped through the cracks in the black clouds. In the instant that he escaped from the black clouds, Yi Chen activated his trump card, the Sword of Hell. A blood-red sword shadow shot out from Yi Chen's right eye. This blood-red sword shadow was a combination of the will of hell, the destruction sword will, and the golden soul power. Each of these three was not to be underestimated. Even the creator Yi Chen did not know how strong their combined power was. After all, there was no suitable test subject. Pooh! The blood-red sword shadow sank into the 9 ghostly sage's head. Arg! A scream rang out, and the 9 ghostly sage's 7 orifices spewed out thick, blood-red smoke like a wriggling snake. His eyes, in particular, shot out 2 beams of blood-red light. His aura grew weaker and weaker, until even his body became blurry, no longer as clear as before. Yi Chen had completely underestimated the power of the Sword of Hell. Whether it was the Golden Soul power, or the Tier 9 Destruction Sword will, they were both abilities of a demigod. They should have been able to injure a beginner demigod, let alone the illusion of the 9 ghostly sage. It works. Yi Chen's eyebrows twitched, and 2 blood-red sword shadows shot out from his right eye. As the 2 blood-red sword shadows shot out, more than half of Yi Chen's golden soul sea disappeared. One more, and the entire golden soul sea would dry up. These 2 blood-red sword shadows were very effective. The 9 ghostly sage's head exploded, and his body dissipated. The black cape on his back also disappeared into the void, vanishing. Impossible? 3 ghostly lord was dumbfounded. He could not imagine that Yi Chen had actually defeated the illusion of Lord 9. He knew very well how strong Lord 9 was. Everyone in hell knew that. Although the strength of his illusion was far from the real body, it still had many tricks up its sleeves. Break! Without further ado, Yi Chen held the firmament sword and slashed open the Dragon Mountain's defensive great array. In the next moment, countless demonic beasts and ghosts rushed out. Yi Chen made a grabbing motion, grabbing the bewildered gold sovereign. His figure flickered, distorting the space-time and disappearing without a trace. There were too many demons and ghosts imprisoned in Dragon Mountain. Faced with such a situation, 3 ghostly lord did not dare to leave the ghostly temple. He was afraid that the moment he did, he would be devoured cleanly by these demons and ghosts, leaving not a single drop behind. Humph! But at this moment, a cold snort rang out, and space and time suddenly froze. In the next instant, an endless black cape spread out, enveloping the fleeing demons and ghosts. No matter how much the legendary ghostly lords howled, it was useless. They could not resist the power of the heavenly ghost treasure. The black cape gradually shrank, draping itself over the body of a cold middle-aged man. It was 9 ghostly sage. This was a projection of 9 ghostly sage. It was even stronger than the previous illusion, and it was not an exaggeration to call this projection the real ghostly sage. The black cape flapped without any wind. Large numbers of demons and ghosts were once again imprisoned in Dragon Mountain, and the protective array was activated once more. With the power of the ghostly sage, it was even sturdier than before. Lord 9, 3 ghostly lord, and the other ghostly lords rushed out of the ghostly temple, kneeling on one knee. 9 ghostly sage looked in the direction that Yi Chen had left, his face cold. When Yi Chen had used the crimson sword shadow, he had already pierced through space and time, sending his own power over. But he had still been a step too slow. Seal the news. Besides you, if anyone else knows about this, you will be held responsible. Nineteen ghostly sage was still very prideful, and did not want others to know about this. Yes, Three ghostly lord shuddered. He knew very well that if news got out, it would damage Lord Nine Yin's reputation, and he would not have a good ending. After Nine ghostly sage left, Three ghostly lord heaved a sigh of relief. Then, as if recalling something, he turned and barked to his ghostly lords. All of you remember this. If anyone spreads word of what happened today, I will make him beg for death. Don't worry, Lord. We will not risk our lives. Three ghostly lord nodded. That was true. Even if these ghostly lords were not afraid of him, they should be afraid of Lord Nine Yin's harsh punishment. He had nothing to worry about. Thinking up to this point, Yi Chen's figure involuntarily flashed through his mind. What an audacious person, even making Lord Nine Yin suffer a loss. Chapter 14:11. You are. Above the Milky Way, the Golden Supreme looked at Yi Chen blankly. The other party's strength shocked him. But why did the other party save him? He did not remember the Human Race Alliance having such a powerful Supreme, nor did he remember knowing or having a relationship with such a Supreme. Everything was too sudden. I am. Yi Chen introduced his identity in detail, not leaving out a single detail. After listening to Yi Chen's introduction, the Golden Supreme's jaw dropped, and he could not close it for a long time. The other party was his future son-in-law? That was too much of a monster. Had he been imprisoned for hundreds of thousands of years? This was the only reasonable explanation. But the Golden Supreme did not think that his sense of time was so weak that he did not even know how much time had passed. How is my daughter doing? The Golden Supreme asked eagerly. Very good. Yi Chen nodded. Just thinking about you. Is that so? Seems like she has already remembered her childhood. The Golden Supreme sighed. I did not expect things to develop to this point. After so many years, I have also woken up. Since I have become a ghostly lord, it is a new life, a new person. Forcefully interfering will only cause me to bleed. Obviously, the Golden Supreme was referring to Red Lotus Ghostly Lord. Uncle, I heard that ghostly lords can also recover the memories of their past lives, Yi Chen said. The Golden Supreme laughed bitterly. Legends can. But that is a legend after all, and the requirements are too harsh. One needs to find a stone of 3 lives, and drink a mouthful of the spring of the past to recover their memories. The stone of 3 lives is very rare even in hell. Among the 10 sages of hell, Heaven Slayer Ghostly Sage and Phoenix Ghostly Sage each have one. The spring of the past is one of the 9 springs of hell, and ordinary people cannot find it at all, because it exists in the past. One needs to reverse time in the correct area to find the spring of the past. So troublesome? Yi Chen frowned. If he guessed correctly, the Heaven Butcher Ghost Sage should have been the supreme of the demons, or a demigod in his previous life, and only became the Hell Ghost Sage later on. If he wanted to borrow the stone of 3 lives from him, it would be good enough if he could come back alive, let alone borrow it. As for the Phoenix Ghost Sage, this was a breakthrough point. After all, he was one of the ancestors of the Phoenix clan. Since he had the stone of 3 lives, he might have the memories of his previous life, so he might be able to borrow the stone of 3 lives. As for the spring of the past, it was quite troublesome. There were a total of 9 springs in the infernal realm, and each of them existed only in legends. The spring of the past came from the past, and not just anyone could see it. Yi Chen was not confident that he could find it. Of course, the most troublesome thing was still the Nine Ghostly Sage. Even if he could find the stone of 3 lives and the spring water of the past, it would be useless if he could not come into contact with Red Lotus Ghostly Lord. Yi Chen had already witnessed the strength of the Nine Ghostly Sage. It was no exaggeration to say that even 100 of him would not be a match for the Nine Ghostly Sage's true body. The difference in strength was too great. After leaving the Sky River, Yi Chen and the Golden Supreme Martial Artist returned to the 4 vital star domains. The moment she saw the Golden Supreme Martial Artist, Su Jing teared up and hugged him. Before she was 10 years old, she had a happy family. One day her mother passed away. Her father stood there in a daze for a few days, then sealed her up and sent her to a foreign world. She had been in a deep sleep until she woke up. Although she was fortunate enough to meet Yi Chen, the sorrow in the depths of her heart could not be erased. Daughter, I'm sorry. The Golden Supreme Martial Artist felt that he was very selfish. For the sake of his wife, he had given up his daughter. He was not fit to be a father. I don't blame you. Su Jing had already found out the cause of the matter from Yi Chen. Yi Chen, from now on, my daughter is in your hands. You must not let her down or else you will disappoint me. The Golden Supreme Martial Artist had wanted to say that he would not forgive him. But after thinking about Yi Chen's strength, he decided not to. He was only a super supreme martial artist, and could not compare to the future son-in-law of a legendary supreme martial artist. Don't worry, uncle. Yi Chen nodded. After solving the problem, Su Jing finally became a supreme martial artist after 3,000 years. As a golden dragon, Su Jing, who had become a supreme martial artist, was many times stronger than ordinary supreme martial artists. She was a powerful supreme martial artist from the start. The Golden Supreme Martial Artist also taught Su Jing his strongest body-refining martial art, the Golden Battle Body. Although the Golden Battle Body was not as good as the Golden Body 9 Revolutions, the Golden Supreme Martial Artist had already cultivated the Golden Battle Body to the highest realm, enough to withstand the attack of a mid-level legendary Supreme Martial Artist, even better than the Golden Buddha Supreme Martial Artist. With his guidance, Su Jing's Golden Battle Body improved by leaps and bounds. 1,000 years later, she reached the peak of the 5th level of the Golden Battle Body, while the Golden Battle Body was only at the 6th level. Morong Qingqing was not willing to fall behind. 1,000 years later, she also became a supreme martial artist. At this time, there were only 10,000 years left before entering the primal chaos battlefield. I'll go and ask for a body-refining martial art for you. Morong Qingqing was equivalent to half a dark demon. Yi Chen planned to ask for the cultivation method of the dark demon body from the six-winged supreme martial artist. How do you want it? Morong Qingqing asked. I have my own ways. Yi Chen smiled mysteriously. 30 years later, on a planet in the demon domain. That detestable sword, Venerable Green Lotus? The six-winged supreme martial artist was furious. This sword, Venerable Green Lotus, was too shameless. He actually dared to come to the demon domain alone and force him to hand over the cultivation method of the dark demon body. When the first demon Venerable successfully cultivates the Demon King Golden Body, you will suffer. Apart from the Demon Tyrant Body, the demons had an even stronger body-refining martial art, the Demon King Golden Body. This body-refining martial art could only be cultivated by the great Demon King bloodline. It was said that when cultivated to the highest realm, even a demigod would be helpless against it. Moreover, it could stimulate the dark power in the great Demon King bloodline and help the first demon Venerable master the law of darkness. Hell's Time Mountain. Ghost Sage Tutian was a white-haired, majestic old man. Together with him was the first demon Venerable with the great Demon King bloodline. Time Mountain. The power of time is especially turbulent. While we are talking, it might have already been 10 or 100 years. If I'm not wrong, the future spring must be hidden in the future spacetime of Time Mountain. Hell had 9 springs, and the future spring was one of them. Is the future spring really so magical? The first demon Venerable asked. Ghost Sage Tutian said. It will only be more magical than what I said. However, you must remember that risk and wealth always go hand in hand. The flow of time in the future spring is thousands of times faster than that of Time Mountain. Perhaps you will die of old age in the future spring. It doesn't matter. If I die of old age in there, it proves that I am nothing more than this. The first demon Venerable said. All right, I hope you can come back alive. Be careful. I want to speed up the flow of time and find the future spring. Ghost Sage Tutian roared, and the power of time and space around him surged. It was not much inferior to the power of time of the Mountain of Time. In the next moment, the space around the two changed unpredictably. Sometimes there was no one, sometimes there were several ghost lords fighting, and sometimes there was a temple. After an unknown period of time, a meandering spring appeared in the Mountain of Time. It flowed and gushed. Listening to this sound, one could not help but be intoxicated. Go in. Ghost Sage Tu Tian hurriedly said. The first demon Venerable nodded and flew towards the spring. With a splash, the first demon Venerable's figure sank into the spring. Seeing this, Ghost Sage Tu Tian dispersed his Ghost Sage power. The surrounding spacetime rebounded until it returned to its original state. Chapter 14:12. The dark demonic body was extremely mysterious. Seriously speaking, it was not the same type of body refining technique as the Golden Body 9 transformations and the Golden Battle Body. This body refining technique only had 3 levels. The first level was very ordinary. At the second level, there would be an additional pair of wings on the back. At the third level, there would be another pair of wings. This was also why the 6-winged supremacy had 3 pairs of wings on her back. It was because she had cultivated the dark demonic body to the 3rd level. Once the dark demonic body was completed, her speed would be extremely fast. The 3 pairs of wings on her back naturally contain the power of time and space. After spending 3,000 years, Morong Qingqing had cultivated the dark demonic body to the 2nd level and had an additional pair of wings on her back. As for the 3rd level, if there was no opportunity, she might not be able to break through in 30,000 years. This was something that could not be rushed. There were only 7,000 years left before they entered the chaotic battlefield. The Human Alliance and the Demons Alliance had both added many supremacies. In the Human Alliance, besides Su Jing and Morong Qingqing, there were more than 10 people who had advanced to the supremacy level, such as Dantai Mingyue, the Golden Emperor, and the Green Emperor. In fact, Su Jing and Morong Qingqing had become supremacies later than them. However, in terms of the speed of improvement, these people naturally could not compare with Su Jing and Morong Qingqing. After all, the one standing behind them was Yi Chen. Back then, Yi Chen had benefited a lot from the Black Wind Stream and obtained countless demon knowledge. It was no exaggeration to say that this was more useful than the inheritance of the supremacy of the 3 realms. Without this demon knowledge, Yi Chen's foundation was ultimately limited. Without this foundation, it would be difficult for Yi Chen to compete with the first demon lord with the Great Demon King bloodline, let alone suppress the other party. With countless demonic knowledge, Yi Chen was naturally very skilled in teaching Su Jing and Morong Qingqing. In just a few thousand years, the 2's martial primordial spirits had reached the critical point, and they were only 1 step away from breaking through to the bronze level. However, Yi Chen did not hide anything. Occasionally, he would give some pointers to some of the newly promoted Supremes. As for whether they could upgrade their martial way primordial spirit to the bronze level before entering the chaos battlefield, that would depend on their own luck. In fact, Yi Chen did not wish for all the Supremes of the Human Race Alliance to enter the chaos battlefield. After all, if that happened, how could the Human Race Alliance contend against the Demons Alliance without any Supremes? Of course, regarding this point, Yi Chen was not very worried. If the Bronze Yuan spirit was so easy to cultivate, it wouldn't be the Bronze Yuan spirit. Back then, in order to cultivate the Bronze Yuan spirit, he had paid a huge price. If it wasn't for the help of the will of the desolate god, it was unknown whether he would still be alive. Don't expose these 4 Sky Saint artifacts unless it's a last resort. Normally, you can just use the Earth Saint artifacts. Su Jing and Morong Qingqing had become Supremes one after another. Yi Chen had taken out 4 Sky Saint artifacts for them at once. 2 Sky Saint artifact armors and 2 Sky Saint artifact weapons. Although they were all 1 star, it still stunned Su Jing and Morong Qingqing for a long time. In the entire universe, not to mention Sky Saint artifacts, even Earth Saint artifacts were extremely rare. It was unexpected that Yi Chen could take out 4 Sky Saint artifacts at once. Could it be that Yi Chen had obtained a Saint artifact treasure trove outside? This is my harvest from the desolate god continent. Yi Chen hadn't told the 2 about this yet. He wanted to give them a surprise. One had to know that there was a huge difference between having and not having a Saint artifact. Without a Saint artifact, the 2 of them were only at the peak of Supremes. On the other hand, with an Earth Saint artifact, the 2 of them were at the level of Supremes. With a Sky Saint artifact, The two of them could walk unhindered among the Supremes. Ordinary Supremes wouldn't be able to do anything to them. This was the terror of a Sky Saint artifact. It could instantly increase one's strength by 1,000,000 times. Recently, Yichen didn't know what was going on. His brows were constantly twitching. After thinking about it, Yichen felt that this should be a warning sign. The first demon sovereign hadn't appeared for a long time. With his personality and bloodline, it was impossible for him to be unknown. He was probably accumulating his strength in the dark. Although Yi Chen's improvement was fast, the bloodline of a great demon king wasn't an ordinary person. Yi Chen's only shortcoming was his Yuan spirit. Yi Chen felt that it was necessary for him to improve his Yuan spirit to the silver intermediate rank. The heavenly river was vast and boundless. Ever since he became a sovereign, Yi Chen hadn't seriously explored the heavenly river. Instead, he went to hell many times. With his space-time ultimacy, Yi Chen could see many more things on the heavenly river. The entire sky above the heavenly river was like countless space-time layers stacked together. If he wasn't careful, he might be far away from his original position. There are countless treasures on the heavenly river, waiting for the fated one. I wonder how my luck is this time. Yi Chen felt that his luck had always been good. However, there were also times when he wasn't lucky. It was impossible to say that he would be lucky every time. Time passed. In the blink of an eye, Yi Chen had already been in the heavenly river for over 100 years. During this period, he found many treasures. However, none of them caught his eye. On this day, Yi Chen felt a heat wave from afar. Heat wave. Yi Chen was very curious. The space-time above the heavenly river overlapped. It was almost impossible to transmit heat over from afar. Even if legendary Supremes were to fight here, they wouldn't be able to transmit their energy far. Let's go and take a look. Following the source of the heat wave, Yi Chen rushed over. After a short while, Yi Chen saw a volcanic island. It was a huge volcanic island. Above the volcanic island, fiery clouds filled the sky. The scarlet light caused the water of the heavenly river to turn red. It was as if magma was flowing there. Rumble! There was only one volcano on the volcanic island. The volcano trembled, and a scarlet pillar of fire soared into the sky, spewing into the depths of the fiery clouds. A terrifying heat wave spread out, as if it was the end of the world. It's Mount Doomsday. Yi Chen's eyes lit up. Mount Doomsday would usually contain extremely precious fire attribute heavenly treasures. The older the Mount Doomsday, the better the fire attribute heavenly treasures. Without any hesitation, Yi Chen flew toward Mount Doomsday. Mount Doomsday was really too big. It was tens of billions of miles tall, and had a diameter of hundreds of billions of miles. Only the mouth of the volcano was very small, only about 50 million miles wide. Roar! As soon as he arrived at the mouth of the volcano, Yi Chen was attacked by a fire monster. This was a fire monster that looked like a dragon, but wasn't a dragon. It looked like a bat, but wasn't a bat. It was a ferocious beast unique to Mount Doomsday, Doomsday Fire Beast. It was said that even the weakest Doomsday Fire Beast had the strength of a super supreme being. Yi Chen felt that the records weren't fake. This Doomsday Fire Beast in front of him had the strength of a super supreme being. It was extremely ferocious. Ignoring the other party, Yi Chen's figure flashed and flew toward the interior of Mount Doomsday. The Doomsday Fire Beast was enraged. It roared and a scarlet sound wave spread out. In the next moment, a large number of Doomsday Fire Beasts surged out from the interior of the volcano like a tide. However, Yi Chen's defense was too strong. He charged around as if there was no one around. These Doomsday Fire Beasts couldn't even stop him for a moment. Mount Doomsday would only erupt once in a very long time. Yi Chen slowly landed at the bottom of the volcano. He looked around and couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. The entire bottom of the volcano was actually filled with spirit energy fire crystals. Spirit energy fire crystals could temper spirit bodies. There were 4 grades: elementary, intermediate, high, and peak. Elementary spirit energy fire crystals were for rank 1 and 2 spirit bodies. Intermediate spirit energy fire crystals were for rank 3 and 4 spirit bodies. High spirit energy fire crystals were for rank 5 and 6 spirit bodies. and peak spirit energy fire crystals were for rank 7 and 8 spirit bodies. A long time ago, Yi Chen had seen many spirit energy fire crystals in an old planet in the Black Tortoise ruins. However, most of them were elementary, intermediate, and few were high. Chapter 1413. Casually collecting some top-grade fire crystals, Yi Chen walked toward the magma lake in the center. The temperature of the magma lake was extremely high, and lava would spurt out from time to time. Yi Chen squinted his eyes as he sensed the aura of the fire laws. He inwardly speculated that if one were to be hit by a lava flow, even a legend-rank sovereign would fall. They would only be able to protect themselves if they had a Sky Saint artifact armor. Due to the high temperature, the space above the magma lake was extremely distorted. Yi Chen's vision could only penetrate millions of miles, and the diameter of the entire magma lake was billions of miles. Frowning, Yi Chen took a deep breath and flew toward the depths of the magma lake. It's so hot! Above the magma lake, the heat was monstrous. Yi Chen felt that even time and space were hot. There were almost no other heavenly Tao laws here, only the violent law of fire. Not daring to be careless, Yi Chen pulled out the firmament sword and flew carefully. There was no pattern to the eruption of magma. The entire magma lake surged with waves, seeming as if it would erupt at any moment. Flying above the magma lake, Yi Chen not only had to avoid the magma, but he also had to carefully observe the undulations of the magma lake. As soon as something went wrong, he would immediately retreat. After all, he didn't dare to be certain that the Black Tortoise Saint armor could withstand the might of the eruption. Boom! The deeper he went into the magma lake, the more lava surged into the sky. Dozens of lava flows interweaved into a net and covered Yi Chen. Holding the firmament sword tightly, Yi Chen blasted out the black hole stance. The next moment, the black hole was destroyed, and the lava flows exploded, turning into a rain of fire. The rain of fire fell on the protective sword energy enhanced by the Black Tortoise sacred armor, making sizzling sounds. Small island. Finally, Yi Chen saw a small island several million li away. It was entirely red in color, and had a diameter of 100 meters. Any wave of lava would be able to submerge it. At the center of the island, a small tree glowing with a fiery light stood there. There were 3 fist-sized fruits on the tree, and intense flames were bursting out of them. Heavenly Demon Fire Spirit Fruit. How many tens of thousands of years would it take? Yi Chen's breathing stagnated. The Celestial Fiend Fire Spirit Fruit was one of the treasures used to temper the spirit body. The higher the age, the stronger the tempering effect. Normally, a 50,000-year-old Celestial Fiend Fire Spirit Fruit was rare. This Celestial Fiend Fire Spirit Fruit tree was at least 100,000 years old. What a pleasant surprise. Originally, Yi Chen planned to look for some heavenly treasures that were beneficial to the martial Dao Yuan spirit. He did not expect to find a Sky Fiend Fire Spirit Fruit tree. With these 3 Sky Fiend Fire Spirit Fruits, Yi Chen was confident that he could advance his spirit body to the late stage of the 9th order. This way, his immortal sword body would improve further, and he might even reach the 17th level. I'm afraid it won't be that easy to obtain the Sky Demon Fire Spirit Fruit. Looking around the island, Yi Chen's expression turned solemn. Normally, heavenly treasures would be guarded by powerful beasts, and the better the treasure, the more terrifying the beasts guarding it. This was the opponent's home ground, and the law of fire was very dense here. The opponent could easily fight those at a higher level than him. Let's see what kind of beast is guarding this place. With a burst of speed, Yi Chen flew toward the island. In just a few blinks of an eye, Yi Chen was less than 10,000 li away from the island. At this moment, the magma lake below shook violently, and with a rumble the sky was filled with magma. A huge beast broke out of the water and flew toward Yi Chen. With a glance, Yi Chen clearly saw the appearance of the beast. It looked exactly like the Doomsday Fire Beast, but it did not have wings. If Yi Chen guessed correctly, this should be the Volcano King born from the Doomsday Volcano. The Volcano King was covered in red scales, and there was a pair of flaming horns on its head. The horns clearly contained a faint law of fire. It was not hard to imagine that even a demigod would be seriously injured if they were stabbed by these horns. Fortunately, Yi Chen did not find any law of fire on the Volcano King's teeth or claws. Otherwise, he would have just run away. There was no way he could beat it. The Volcano King's speed was as fast as a flash of fire. Fortunately, Yi Chen's reaction was not slow either. With a wave of the firmament sword, a sword light met the Volcano King. Boom! The shockwave shook, and the Volcano King was sent flying. Yi Chen could not help but sway. Fortunately, it should be a quasi-saint beast. However, the attack from that pair of horns is definitely at the saint beast level. I cannot let it hit me. Yi Chen was most afraid of the pair of horns. Roar! The Volcano King was furious. The horns on its head shone brightly, and two flaming spears extended toward Yi Chen. At the same time that Yi Chen dodged one flaming spear, the firmament sword cut the other one. The huge recoil was transmitted from the firmament sword to Yi Chen's right arm, causing Yi Chen's body to shake. The law of fire has been isolated by the firmament sword, but the explosive power caused by the law of fire still exists. Yi Chen felt the blood in his body boil. Passively taking a beating was not a way out. Yi Chen forcefully raised his sword energy and attacked the Volcano King with a heavy sword move. Immediately, the magma lake between the two split open. The incomparably heavy sword light completely locked onto the Volcano King, making it unable to move. As if sensing the power of the sword light, the Volcano King lowered its head, and its horns faced the sword light. Poochie! The sword light shattered, and the Volcano King somersaulted several times in the air. Finally, it slid across the surface of the magma lake for nearly 1,000 miles. Visible cracks could be seen on its forehead. Although the horns had shattered the sword light, the remaining sword light was still powerful, and slightly broke through its defense. Chance! Yi Chen's eyes brightened. After a few flashes, he appeared on the Red Island, and reached out to pull out the Sky Demon Fire Spirit fruit tree. However, to Yi Chen's surprise, there was actually a small red snake coiled around the tree. Because the fruit tree was shining brightly, Yi Chen did not notice this small snake. Just as Yi Chen's palm reached out, the small snake opened its poisonous fangs and bit at Yi Chen's wrist. At the critical moment, Yi Chen's palm drew an arc, passing by a Sky Demon Fire Spirit fruit tree. Bam! A Sky Demon Fire Spirit fruit tree was suddenly missing. Seeing one less fruit, the red snake was enraged. Its body arched and shot toward Yi Chen. Its speed was so fast that even space and time were distorted. Like a spring that had been pressed to its limit, it suddenly let go. Bang! The red snake looked very small, but its strength was unbelievably great. Yi Chen's whole body flew backward like a flowing light. He flew tens of thousands of miles above the magma lake before he stopped. So scary. Yi Chen had a lingering fear. He felt that this red snake was even scarier than the King of Volcanoes. The King of Volcanoes only had a pair of horns that were more powerful. One Sky Demon Fire Spirit fruit should be enough. Yi Chen did not plan to fight to the death with the King of Volcanoes and the red snake. These two were not to be trifled with. The key was that they had the means to threaten Yi Chen. Rumble! Before Yi Chen could rejoice at the fact that he had obtained a Sky Demon Fire Spirit fruit, the entire magma lake suddenly became violent. This was the sign of an eruption. Run! Yi Chen did not care about anything else. He crazily flew toward the shore of the magma lake. As long as he reached the shore, he could use the black tortoise sacred armor to resist the power of the eruption. However, no matter how fast Yi Chen was, he could not be faster than the speed of the eruption. In the next moment, the entire magma lake disappeared. A pillar of fire as thick as the magma lake shot up into the sky, wrapping Yi Chen in it. Chapter 14:14. Chi 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 Chi. The protective sword Chi rapidly weakened, and only a thin layer remained. In the next moment, the protective sword Chi collapsed, and the scorching magma drowned Yi Chen. Boom! Suddenly, a beam of light exploded, pushing the magma away. Outside Yi Chen's body, a black shield of light reappeared. The true power of the Xuanwu Saint armor had been activated. Thank goodness! Yi Chen heaved a sigh of relief. If the black tortoise sacred armor had not been able to unleash its true power, Even if he did not die, he would have been severely injured, and his foundation would have been damaged. Following the pillar of fire, Yi Chen arrived above the crater of the volcano and rushed into the fiery clouds. Whoosh! At this time, the power of the fire pillar had weakened. Yi Chen easily escaped from the fire pillar and flew millions of miles away. With a flip of his palm, the fist-sized celestial fiend fire spirit fruit floated above his palm. A bright red flame burst forth from it, making it look more like a miniature sun than a fruit. A heavenly fiend fire spirit fruit, over 100,000 years only exists in legends. I wonder if it can help my spirit body break through from mid-ninth order to late ninth order. Although a heavenly demon fire spirit fruit, that was over 100,000 years old was rare in the world, it wasn't that easy to raise a ninth stage spiritual body. Most importantly, Yi Chen wasn't a body refinement sovereign. With a ninth step spirit body, each step was like a different world. Under normal circumstances, unless one was a body refinement sovereign, it would be impossible for them to advance, and they would stay at the early ninth step for the rest of their lives. There were two reasons why Yi Chen was able to raise his spirit body to the mid-ninth step. Firstly, he had collected enough heavenly materials and earthly treasures. Secondly, which was also the most important reason, Yi Chen had created the immortal sword body and could be considered a half-baked body refinement sovereign. Therefore, to advance from the mid-ninth order to the late ninth order was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Only with the sky demon fire spirit fruit, that was over 100,000 years old, would it be impossible for Yi Chen's spirit body to advance for a long time. Let's find a place to test it first. After storing the sky demon fire spirit fruit, Yi Chen's figure flashed and disappeared without a trace. On a precipitous island, surging spiritual energy suddenly erupted, turning the entire area red. It was as if a volcano was erupting, venting a powerful force. On the mountainside of the island's only mountain peak, Yi Chen sat cross-legged on the ground. The fiery sky demon fire spirit fruit floated above his head. The heavenly demon fire spirit fruit, that was over 100,000 years old, had too much spiritual energy. Directly swallowing it would bring Yi Chen a lot of trouble. Yi Chen simply absorbed its energy slowly to temper his body. Traces of fire seeped out from the surface of the sky demon fire spirit fruit and entered through the top of Yi Chen's head. As the fire entered his body, Yi Chen's body emitted a brilliant heat. His clothes had long turned to ashes, revealing the black tortoise sacred armor tattoo on his naked body. So hot! Yi Chen felt as if he had become a furnace. The fire inside was brewing and accumulating. This feeling was very strange. Yi Chen couldn't help but sigh. The human body was too strange. Even as a legendary supremacy, he couldn't see through all the mysteries of the human body. Every time he thought he saw through it, it was actually just the surface layer. Dazzling light flickered. Yi Chen's body glowed, and the surface of his skin gradually turned red, like iron being heated by fire. This situation continued until Yi Chen's entire body seemed to have turned into a red light. His silhouette and appearance couldn't be seen at all. 1 month later, the sky demon fire spirit fruit had shrunk by more than half, and the red light man below was even more brilliant. Still not enough, the red light man raised his head and swallowed the remaining sky demon fire spirit fruit. Boom! The moment he swallowed the sky demon fire spirit fruit, the red light man's 7 orifices shot out light. His eyes shot out a deep red light that pierced through the mountain peak. So powerful, Yi Chen felt that the sky demon fire spirit fruit's power was constantly seeping into him, seeping into a depth that he had never explored before. It was transforming his body in an extremely violent manner, sublimating his physique. Creak! Yi Chen couldn't help but clench his fists. Space-time trembled, and cracks appeared on the island and the mountain peak. The deep red light leaked out from the cracks, and the entire island was like a glowing crystal that was about to shatter. 1 week later, the island still hadn't shattered. An indescribable power was stabilizing the island. Inside the mountain peak, the red light on Yi Chen's body gradually faded. Only his heart was still shining. Waves of surging power rippled out, causing a large number of space-time cracks to appear around Yi Chen. After an unknown amount of time, The red light on his heart also faded, until there was only a little left. Puff! The little red light was extinguished. The instant the red light was extinguished, an invisible wave of air erupted with Yi Chun at the center. The island was instantly torn apart, turning into a rain of stones. Without using any power, Yi Chun floated above the heavenly river. His powerful vitality field gave him the ability to fly in the heavenly river. Is this the late-stage rank 9 spirit body? Yi Chun felt that his body was filled with endless power. It was as if he would never feel tired or exhausted for the rest of his life. Inside the heart, there was an additional black hole. However, this black hole didn't absorb power. Instead, it spat out power. It had become Yi Chun's perpetual motion machine. Inextinguishable core. This black hole was the inextinguishable core. A rank 7 spirit body could give birth to an inextinguishable power. The inextinguishable power could heal any injury, even the origin. However, the consumption was a little high, so it wasn't obvious in the early stages. With a rank 8 spirit body, there would be more and more inextinguishable power. At the rank 9 spirit body, the inextinguishable power would be like a vast ocean. Apart from the origin injuries caused by saint weapons, it could heal almost any injury. But no matter what, the inextinguishable power would eventually be used up. Once it was used up, it would be extremely difficult to recover. However, it was different with an inextinguishable core. The inextinguishable core would constantly spit out inextinguishable power. Although the amount it spat out wasn't much, it had the advantage of being able to last for a long time. As time passed, the inextinguishable power would accumulate. Apart from that, people with an inextinguishable core were extremely difficult to kill. With the same strength, people with an inextinguishable core were 10 times harder to kill. I wonder if I can cultivate the immortal sword body to the 17th level. Yi Chun sat cross-legged in the void. With a wave of his palm, a large number of rank 3 and 4 supreme swords flew out. Activating the immortal sword body, Yi Chun started to absorb the essence of the supreme swords. A dense sword light bloomed as the 16 sword patterns on Yi Chun's body started to wander. The 16th sword pattern turned from a shallow one to a very deep one, which was above the other 15 sword patterns. However, the 17th sword pattern still hadn't appeared. At this moment, the immortal sword body should be at the peak of the 16th level. Letting out a breath of metal air, Yi Chun shook his head. The 17th level wasn't that easy to break through. Thinking about it, it made sense. If the 16th level could block the attack of a demigod, then wouldn't the 17th level be able to ignore the attack of a demigod? Not going to the Doomsday Volcano again, the Sky Demon Fire Spirit Fruit had made Yi Chun's body resistant. If he took a second one, the effect would be greatly reduced. Moreover, he might not be able to beat that red snake and the Volcano King, especially that red snake. Chapter 14-15. In the Celestial River, the passage of time was hard to detect. Unknowingly, Yi Chun had stayed in the Celestial River for a whole 1,000 years. In these 1,000 years, he followed the main branch of the Celestial River and advanced forward. He encountered a level 5 water monster, a Celestial River wonder, and a headless sovereign. In the end, he watched as the headless sovereign disappeared before his eyes. It turned out that the headless sovereign didn't really exist. It was just an illusion formed by the Celestial River's vital energy from the Obsession Sutra. Apart from the headless sovereign, he also saw other illusions of other sovereigns, and they were all real existences. In the 108th year, Yi Chun saw a huge vortex. It was a vortex that shocked even a legendary sovereign like him, who was almost invincible below the demigod realm. He didn't know how big this vortex was. It was at least several light years away. Even when he was far away from the vortex, Yi Chun felt that he could be sucked away at any time. How did this vortex form? Yi Chun felt a rare trace of nervousness. This wasn't because of fear, but because of the unknown. The unknown always made people curious and nervous. No one knew what would happen. My immortal sword body has already reached the peak of the 16th level. Together with the Xianwu Saint armor, ordinary elementary demigods might not be able to kill me. Why don't I go in and take a look? Perhaps it was because he was skilled and daring, or perhaps it was because of his inner demons, but Yichen wanted to go in and take a look. After hesitating for a long time, Yichen finally made up his mind. As he got closer and closer to the vortex, the suction became stronger and stronger. Whoosh! Just as Yichen approached the edge of the vortex, a huge suction acted on Yichen's body. Without much resistance, Yichen was instantly sucked into the center of the vortex and disappeared without a trace. Above the endless winding spring, an old man sat cross-legged. He seemed to be dead, and there was no sign of life on his body. However, every once in a while, a golden light would appear on the old man's body. The golden light was sometimes weak and sometimes strong. When it was weak, it was like an illusion flashing for a moment. When it was strong, a large area of the spring would be dyed by the golden light. Even time and space were corroded by the golden light and became solidified, making it hard for people to breathe. Glug glug glug. The spring water boiled and the old man's body glowed with a golden light once again. This time, the golden light was especially intense. The spring water in his vision turned golden and stopped flowing. Under the corrosion of the golden light, time and space turned pale gold. Occasionally, a golden ripple swept past, shaking the universe and reversing the flow of time and space. Demon King Golden Body defy time. The old man suddenly opened his eyes. His eyes were like golden glass, and the golden light pierced through time and space, as if he had seen through the true essence of the spring water. Rumble, rumble. The golden light surged like the tide, and the time and space around the old man started to flow in reverse. The old man's white hair gradually darkened, turning from white to gray then gray. The old man's appearance gradually became younger. 90 years old, 80 years old, 70 years old, 60 years old. Every time a golden ripple passed by, the old man would become younger. But what was strange was that not only did the old man's aura not weaken because of time reversal, it actually became even stronger. It was as if time reversal could only affect his body, and not the power he possessed. After an unknown amount of time, the old man was no longer an old man. At this time, he looked about 40 years old, and his expression was exactly the same as the first demon sovereign. As expected of the Demon King Golden Body, it allowed my time profound to reach perfection in an instant. The first demon sovereign felt that his perception had never been so strong before. Of course, the special nature of the future spring was also one of the important reasons why his time profound reached perfection. Plop! Yichen fell into an endless meandering spring water. This spring water was very special. It was actually condensed from the power of time and space. If Yichen was any other supremes, they would probably die in a few breaths, without any suspense. Yichen was shocked. His protective sword energy burst forth, containing the perfect time and space, profound to resist the spring water. Could this be one of the 9 springs of hell, the future spring? The Milky Way and the Yellow Springs were two sides of the same coin. It was not impossible to come to the future spring from the Milky Way. Yichen was different from the first demon sovereign, who had entered the future spring. The future spring could not pose a threat to him. After all, his time and space profound had long reached perfection. On the contrary, the future spring could not pose a threat to him. Instead, it allowed him to see a new world. In the spring water, he could feel traces of obscure time and space law. This time and space law was not oppressive. Instead, it was very friendly to Yichen. Yichen tested it, and found that he could guide the flow of time and space of the future spring. He could even reverse the flow of time and space. Right. I can directly use the power of time and space on my martial path Yuan Shun. Yichen thought of a possibility. He did it. Yichen's martial path Yuan Shun floated out, and was exposed to the spring water. His body was protected by his time and space profound. The flow of the spring water increased, and the strength of his martial path Yuan Shun also increased. Success! Yichen revealed a look of surprise. He did not expect things to go so smoothly. It was simply an unexpected harvest. What Yichen did not know was that in front of him, the first demon sovereign was reversing the flow of the future spring, and he was accelerating it. Soon the two's powers would collide. The color of the martial path Yuan Shun was getting purer and purer, and the power it contained was getting more and more terrifying. Very soon, Yi Chen's martial path Yuan Shun reached the intermediate silver rank. At the same time, Yi Chen also broke through from the beginner legendary rank to the intermediate legendary rank. Although the increase in his cultivation didn't increase his combat power, Yi Chen was confident that he could suppress the red snake in battle. Rumble! In front of him, a towering wave suddenly exploded. Yi Chen's body swayed, and his martial path Yuan Shen involuntarily entered his body. What's going on? Yi Chen looked ahead. Amidst the splashing water, Yi Chen saw the figure of the first demon sovereign. The spring water was formed by the power of time and space. It could ignore distance and transmit images. First demon sovereign. Green Lotus Sword sovereign. The two of them saw each other. Very good. My Demon King golden body has reached completion, and I was just about to fight you. The first demon sovereign's voice passed through the splashing water and reached Yi Chen's ears. That's what I was thinking too. An intense battle intent flashed in Yi Chen's eyes. In the end, the two of them were unwilling to be left out. They couldn't beat White Pole Sword Sage and Devil Sage Galois, so they treated each other as their only opponent in the universe, and perhaps in the future. Take my fist. Separated by the endless spring water, the first demon sovereign punched over. The future spring was very special. No matter how far away they were, as long as they could sense each other, they could attack. Distance no longer mattered. Let me see how much you have improved. Yi Chen didn't use the firmament sword. He held the heaven sword and swung it. Chapter 14-16. The fist power and the sword chi clashed together, creating a huge water column. The two continued to attack each other through the water column. It seemed like they would not stop until they reached their goal. My power has increased so much. Yi Chen was a bit surprised. Before his sword intent reached the 9th rank, he was already many times stronger than the first demon lord. But now that his sword intent had reached the 9th rank, he was actually on par with the first demon lord. It was not hard to imagine how much the first demon lord had improved. Yi Chen was astonished, but the first demon sovereign was even more astonished. His Demon King golden body had reached the major completion, arousing the dark power in the depths of his bloodline. Not only did his dark Yuan spirit break through to the high silver rank, his dark profound was also gradually transforming into the dark law, increasing his strength by countless folds. Under demigod realm, he was close to being invincible. He originally thought that Yi Chen was no longer his opponent, but reality told him that Yi Chen was not any weaker than him. Boom, boom, boom. Time after time, the two could not do anything to each other. Sneering, Yi Chen held his sword with both of his hands and raised it up high. He then threw out a heavy sword attack. The heavy sword light sliced through the waves and reached the first demon lord in an instant. Demon King golden body. The first demon lord roared. His body shone with a golden light, along with black lightning. The sword light landed on the first demon lord's body, but it could not cut into his body. It only cut a little bit of his skin before disappearing. It was not the first demon lord's style to take a beating. He threw out a horrifying punch. It was the sublimation of the light and dark fist, dark chaos fist. The heaven and earth turned chaotic. Yi Chen was hit by the first demon lord's punch. This punch was actually made up of countless punches. Yi Chen could not dodge all of them. One of them landed on his chest. Clang! The fist power did not break through Yi Chen's defense like the first demon lord had expected. Instead, it bounced off. Compared to the first demon ancestor's Demon King golden body, Yi Chen's peak 16th layer Immortal sword body was not the slightest bit inferior. Adding the black tortoise saint armor, Yi Chen's defense was no less than the first demon ancestor's. First demon lord, I didn't expect you to improve so much. I wonder if you have a heavenly saint weapon? Yi Chen pulled out the firmament sword and slashed down angrily. It was still the heavy sword style. Kacha! A soft tearing sound rang out, and a pitch-black hole appeared in the sky above the spring of the future. With the improvement of his martial arts primordial spirit, Yi Chen could activate more of the power of the firmament sword. With his full strength, He immediately tore the space-time of the spring of the future. Of course, compared to the spring of the future, which had no beginning or end, this hole was nothing. The first demon venerable's saint artifact armor shattered all of a sudden, and cracks appeared on the surface of the demon king's golden body. Fortunately, at the critical moment, a black halo emerged from his body and blocked the sword light. Otherwise, even if the first demon venerable didn't die, his origin would be severely injured. He stared at the firmament sword in shock, and without any hesitation, he entered the black crack created by the firmament sword. Is this the law of darkness? Yi Chen frowned slightly. The first demon sovereign's speed of improvement was too fast, so fast that it made people's hair stand on end. Yi Chen's current strength was because he had developed in all aspects, but the first demon sovereign had only comprehended a trace of the law of darkness, and yet he was able to erase all of Yi Chen's advantages. One could imagine how terrifying the first demon sovereign would be once he grasped more of the law of darkness. Where there is a will, there is a way. Maybe I can try to find the entrance to the law of darkness. Only powerful demigods could comprehend the law of darkness. Yi Chen didn't know how the first demon sovereign had comprehended it. After all, even Sword Saint Bai Ji and Demon Saint Jiao Luo hadn't grasped the law of darkness. However, Yi Chen felt that he could give it a try. Hell Mountain of Time. As time flowed in reverse, a black shadow fell from the void, accompanied by a rain of blood. Wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth, the first demon sovereign pursed his lips. Yi Chen's strength was beyond his imagination. Even the first demon sovereign, who had the bloodline of a great demon king, felt extremely strained. The future spring wasn't omnipotent. The stronger one was, the less useful the future spring would be to them. As his Yuan Shen advanced to the intermediate silver rank, Yi Chen discovered that his Yuan Shen seemed to have developed a resistance to the future spring, and its progress was very slow. Without a choice, Yi Chen used the time and space profound to guide the law of time and space of the future spring, accelerating its flow. Only then did his Yuan Shen barely manage to advance to the intermediate silver rank. However, after his Yuan Shen reached the intermediate silver rank, it couldn't advance any further. It was like a pool of stagnant water. Yi Chen faintly felt that this opportunistic trick might cause his Yuan Shen to be unable to break through for a very long time. After all, his foundation was too shallow, and he needed to fill up his own things. As the Yuan Shen entered his body, Yi Chen began to swim in the future spring and began to comprehend the laws. Laws were higher than rules. Normally speaking, laws were inherent, while rules were formed after birth. However, as a martial artist grew stronger, there wasn't much difference between laws and rules. Since one could create rules, then one could also create laws, allowing one's will to replace the operation of heaven and earth. The first demon sovereign's dark chaos fist contained the law of darkness. Even though it was only a trace, it was still impossible for Yi Chen to dodge. If the other party's law of darkness was deep enough, they could completely annihilate Yi Chen with the law of darkness. No, the future spring only contains the law of time and space. With my current realm, I still can't comprehend the law of time or space. After an unknown period of time, Yi Chen woke up. The future spring looked like spring water, but this spring water was formed by the power of time and space. It wasn't real spring water. The entire future spring only contained the power of time and space, and nothing else. Without a medium, Yi Chen would find it hard to comprehend the laws other than the law of time and space. Right, I wonder if the firmament sword contains the law. Yi Chen suddenly had an idea. He wanted to know if the Sky Saint artifact contained the power of law. Otherwise, how could the Sky Saint artifact be so powerful that he couldn't unleash the full power of the firmament sword? His consciousness sank into the firmament sword, and Yi Chen began to search for the origin of the firmament sword. Finally, Yi Chen found a drop of water, a whirlwind, and a transparent crystal in the depths of the firmament sword. In the past, Yi Chen couldn't detect these at all. Now that his martial Dao Yuan soul had reached the advanced silver rank, Yi Chen could do it. The law of water, the law of wind, and the law of space. Yi Chen took a deep breath. There were actually 3 types of law in the origin of the firmament sword. These 3 types of law were very weak, but after combining with the origin, they formed a special characteristic. This special characteristic was the power of the firmament. The stronger the origin and the power of law, the stronger the power of the firmament. Yi Chen vaguely understood the relationship between the saint artifact and the divine stone. The divine stone contained the law of fragmentation. When the law was fragmented to a certain extent, it would decompose into profound meaning. Only by integrating enough divine stones, the saint artifact could gradually evolve until it gave birth to the law and became a sky saint artifact. Chapter 14:17. Splash! The spring of the future flowed endlessly, drifting into the distance. Yi Chen sat cross-legged, drifting with the flow. On his knees was the 3-star heavenly sacred artifact, the firmament sword. As his mind sank into the firmament sword, Yi Chen seemed to have forgotten the passage of time. He carefully comprehended the 3 types of laws in the firmament sword's origin. The law of water was a water droplet, the law of wind was a whirlwind, and the law of space was a transparent crystal. The water droplet that represented the law of water looked calm, but it was turbulent inside. It was like a boundless ocean. When it was quiet, it was calm and without waves. When it was angry, it could destroy the world. The whirlwind that represented the law of wind spun endlessly. As long as Yi Chen's mind came into contact with it, it would immediately be sliced into pieces. He could not approach it at all. This caused Yi Chen to be unable to observe the whirlwind. The transparent crystal that represented the law of space was even more tyrannical. It emitted a transparent, colorless light. When Yi Chen's mind was illuminated by the colorless light, it immediately disappeared without a trace. He could not even approach it, let alone observe the transparent crystal. Yi Chen knew that among the 3 types of laws, the law of water should be the easiest to comprehend. Therefore, it was the easiest to observe. The law of wind was much more tyrannical. He could not comprehend it at this stage, let alone the law of space. After giving up on the law of wind and the law of space, Yi Chen began to fully focus on comprehending the law of water. How peaceful! As his mind observed the surface of the water droplet, Yi Chen felt that his mind was completely still. He had a feeling that he wanted to forget everything. He wanted to throw everything aside and enjoy this feeling of peace. Something's not right. Sword intent surged, and Yi Chen recovered from his state of mind as still as water. Normally, one needed to have a mind as still as water. However, when studying the law of water, one must not have one's mind as still as water. Yi Chen had a premonition that once he sank into it, he might never wake up. With vigilance, Yi Chen's mind carried a trace of sword intent. When he looked at the surface of the water droplet, Yi Chen's mind was like still water. But when he looked at the inside of the water droplet, Yi Chen's mind was abnormally lively, and it was hard to control. His thoughts were flying everywhere. Let alone comprehending it, he couldn't even control his own mind. It was so sad that he wanted to vomit blood. No wonder laws can only be comprehended by powerful demigods. But why did the first demon sovereign comprehend the law of darkness? Yi Chen frowned. The reason why powerful demigods could comprehend laws was probably because they had a gold yuan spirit. Wanting to comprehend laws with a silver yuan spirit was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. But since the first demon sovereign comprehended the law of darkness, it was enough to prove that he could comprehend laws without a gold yuan spirit. As for how the first demon sovereign comprehended it, Yi Chen didn't want to know. He had no way of knowing. How could Yi Chen know that after the first demon sovereign cultivated the demon king golden body, he stimulated the power of darkness in the depths of his bloodline? Rather than saying that the law of darkness was comprehended, it was more like it came with him. It was like the profound mysteries in the bodies of the beasts, or the trace of the law of space in Yi Chen's netherworld sacred eye. The ignorant were fearless. Yi Chen continued to comprehend the law of water. In the blink of an eye, 5,000 years passed in the outside world. Within the future spring, a thin mist appeared around Yi Chen's body. The future spring was formed from the power of space and time. Logically speaking, It couldn't contain any other power, but this mist was clearly the power of water. In Yi Chen's soul sea waves surged. Even the three sword souls were affected. They joined forces to resist. Above the center of the soul sea, a water droplet was forming. 5,000 years in the outside world was countless years in the future spring. If it wasn't for Yi Chen's perfect protection of the power of space and time, he would have long died of old age. Hard work paid off. He really did comprehend a trace of the law of water. The reason why he could comprehend the law of water was largely due to the firmament sword. Otherwise, Yi Chen wouldn't have known what the law of water was. Secondly, the golden soul force also played a big role. This was the soul force of a demigod. Thirdly, the ninth step sword intent couldn't go unnoticed, especially the radiance sword intent. With the radiance sword intent in his mind, Yi Chen could observe the law of water with greater clarity. Rumble. The soul sea kept shaking. Yi Chen realized that comprehending the law in advance wasn't necessarily a good thing. His soul sea seemed to be unable to withstand the power of the law. The soul sea was directly related to the martial Dao Yuan Shen. The soul sea was also a place that contained soul force. It was equivalent to a container. This container was too fragile and could easily be damaged. Taking a deep breath, Yi Chen operated the immortal sword intent to the limit to protect his soul sea. Then, he continued to condense the water droplet. The moment before the water droplet was formed, Yi Chen's immortal sword intent collapsed. His soul sea was almost torn apart. Fortunately, the water droplet was formed, and the law power was completely restrained. After a long time, Yi Chen opened his eyes. A layer of lustrous light flashed across the surface of his eyes. I finally comprehended a trace of the law of water. I wonder how powerful the 5 elements sword art will be. Yi Chen was looking forward to it. He held the firmament sword with both hands. Whoosh! Yi Chen slashed out. 5 elements sword art's 4th style, heavy sword. The spring of the future was torn apart. A blue sword light flashed, and water vapor filled the air. The other profoundness is suppressed. Yi Chen was a little surprised. It was clearly the heavy sword, but it didn't have the same feeling as before. The real heavy sword gave people a heavy feeling. The blue sword light just now seemed to be condensed from water, but its power was magnified by millions of times. It seems that the law and profoundness can't coexist. The law can only exist by itself. Yi Chen smiled bitterly. From now on, the 5 elements sword art was useless. The 5 elements sword art couldn't do without the water profoundness. But now, the water profoundness had become the law of water. In addition, when he used the law of water, Yi Chen's soul sea surged again. Yi Chen estimated that if he continuously used the law of water, his soul sea would definitely collapse. In the future, when he fought with his enemies, the law of water could only be used as a trump card. Of course, if he encountered an enemy below the demigod level, he could easily end the battle once he used the law of water. The only thing that could threaten Yi Chen was the demigod level. If he encountered a demigod, it was best to escape. If he couldn't finish off the opponent in a short time, he would be finished off by the opponent. It's time to leave. Tearing apart the space-time of the spring of the future, Yi Chen flew out. When he reappeared, Yi Chen appeared in hell. Without any hesitation, Yi Chen tore apart the space-time of hell again and left. 1 month later, Yi Chen returned to the 4 major star regions with life. 5,000 years have passed. I will enter the primal chaos battlefield in another 2,000 years. For the first time, Yi Chen felt a little pressed for time. After leaving this time, he didn't know when he would return. It was equivalent to saying goodbye to the people he cared about forever. Yi Chen decided to accompany his parents for the next 2,000 years. Chapter 1418. The Waterbird Planet was where the Yi family was based. With Yi Chen's current status and strength, it was not impossible for him to occupy a level 9 life planet, but there was no need for that. The Waterbird Planet was large enough for the Yi family to survive and develop. Besides, the Yi family also controlled many life planets, ranging from level 1 to level 7. It would be too greedy to occupy a level 9 life planet. In Yi Chen's eyes, the Waterbird Planet was the most suitable life planet for the Yi family. He planned to set up many traps on the waterbird planet. He believed that these traps would allow the Yi family to prosper for hundreds of thousands, or even millions of years. As for the distant future, Yi Chen did not think too much about it. On the waterbird planet, more than 80% was oceans and lakes. Only 10% was land. There were a total of 36 continents and countless islands. To the east of the main continent, the waterbird continent, was a beautiful island. It had a white beach, azure seawater, and a light blue sky. Everything was so beautiful. However, if a paragon was here, he would definitely notice that this island was separated from the outside world. It looked like it was in the same world, but it actually contained different laws. The law of water is broad and profound. Just a trace of it has the power to change the world. It is truly awe-inspiring. After returning from the spring of the future, Yi Chen began to study the magical uses of the law of water. This island was where he experimented. After hundreds of years, he had already gained some experience in using the law of water. The Wilds continent contains the law of the Wilds god. I wonder what realm it is. The stronger he was, the more Yi Chen felt the gap between him and a true god. A true god did not control ordinary laws, but the law of God. With Yi Chen's current realm, he could not understand what a law of God was at all. It was just like how ants could not understand the thoughts of humans. Standing in a different position, the perspective of things was also different. This was the biggest difference between a mortal and a true god. He opened his right hand, and a water ball suddenly formed. It was very sudden. It was as if the water ball had always been in Yi Chen's hand. It was just that the invisibility state had been removed. He clenched his fist lightly, and the water ball began to tremble. Correspondingly, the entire waterbird planet also began to tremble subtly. Ripples appeared on the boundless ocean, and in the center of the ocean, the monstrous waves even touched the atmosphere, emitting a power that could destroy the world. Whoosh! The water ball dissipated, and the waterbird star returned to normal in an instant, as if what had happened before was just an illusion. So scary. What just happened? On the waterbird planet, some of the experts still had lingering fears. There's no need to make a fuss. It must be Sword Venerable Green Lotus cultivating. Similar situations have been happening in the past few hundred years. Oh, I see. You scared me. Knowing the reason, those who did not know immediately heaved a sigh of relief. Since Sword Venerable Green Lotus was cultivating, they did not think that there would be any danger staying on the waterbird planet. After all, Sword Venerable Green Lotus's family was also on the waterbird planet. The waterbird star has the most water, so it's most beneficial to my water laws. After grasping a trace of the water laws, Yi Chen could control most of the things in the world that were related to water. If the enemy's martial arts contained the profoundness of water, then sorry, he would not even be able to unleash the complete martial arts. It was just like how Yi Chen could not unleash the complete 5 elements sword technique. In front of the water laws, the profoundness of water did not need to exist at all. Of course, there were also water that Yi Chen could not control, such as the Heavenly River's water. The Heavenly River contained the Heavenly River laws, which were equivalent to the Wilderness God laws. His own water laws were not enough. Swoosh! The water rippled, and Yi Chen disappeared without a trace. When he reappeared, Yi Chen had arrived in the desolate starry sky outside the 4 major life zones. After comprehending a trace of the water laws, Yi Chen naturally wanted to create a sword technique with the water laws as the core. After a few hundred years, he had already made some progress. Standing quietly in the starry sky, Yi Chen closed his eyes. Whoosh! With Yi Chen as the center, an endless stream of water was born, drowning a large part of the starry sky. Billowing sword. His eyes suddenly opened, and Yi Chen pointed his sword finger forward. An extremely terrifying scene happened. The endless stream of water, along with a large number of planets, turned into a huge sword. Wherever the huge sword passed, space-time shattered, and everything was destroyed. In the past, Yi Chen's defense was stronger than his attack, but now, Yi Chen's attack was stronger than his defense, and he had also reached the level of an elementary demigod. Feeling an intense pain in his head, Yi Chen hurriedly withdrew the water laws. This time, the duration of the water laws had been used up, and if he continued to activate the water laws, his soul sea would not be able to withstand it. After several hundred years of experiments, Yi Chen had tested some useful data. When activating the water laws at full force, he could roughly maintain it for 15 minutes, and after that he would have to rest for a week. In other words, he could only activate the water laws for 15 minutes in a week. Of course, if he activated it separately, the total duration would not be just 15 minutes. For example, if he activated it for a short period of time this time, it would not cause any harm to his soul sea, and the next time he activated it, he could still activate it for 15 minutes. If he used the time reasonably, the restriction would not be too great, and he could activate it for a short period of time every day. The Yi clan had always been very lively, and all the direct descendants lived here. Due to the huge population, the entire clan had slowly expanded into a huge city, which was divided into 3 regions: the central city, the inner city, and the outer city. Each region was unbelievably huge, and there were plains, lakes, mountains, and everything else that should be there. In the central city, in a garden that looked like a sea of flowers, Yi Chen was playing with a group of children. "Grandpa, play with me. Grandpa, when are you going to teach me sword arts? I'm already 5 years old. Grandpa." Dozens of children surrounded Yi Chen, either asking for hugs or acting coquettishly, causing Yi Chen to be extremely busy. If there were outsiders here, they would definitely suspect that their eyes were playing tricks on them. The mighty sword Venerable Green Lotus also had times when he was in a difficult situation. "Everyone has already grown up. I wonder when I will have my own children." Yi Chen had a big smile on his face. Some of these children were the descendants of his younger brothers and sisters, some were the descendants of his disciples, and some were the descendants of his friends, such as Luo Hanshan and Zhang Haoren. He was the only one who didn't have any children yet, not to mention descendants. At this moment, Yi Chen felt that time had passed very quickly. In a pavilion far away, Yi Tianhao and Shen Yuqing were smilingly looking at their son playing with the children. Next to them were Yi Xiaoxiao, Yi Xian, Su Jing, and Morong Qingcheng. The whole family was here. Yi Tianhao and Shen Yuqing glanced at each other, unable to hide the happiness in their eyes. Indeed, they thought that they were the happiest people in the world. They had many children and grandchildren, and they could see even more children and grandchildren being born. Compared to the lifespan of ordinary people, they could live for 100,000 years. Even if they died after 100,000 years, they would have no regrets. After all, they had lived long enough. Chapter 14:19. The spring of the past was easy to obtain, but the stone of 3 lives was hard to come by. The spring of the past and the spring of the future were both directly connected to the mountain of time. The difference was that the spring of the future could only be seen by accelerating the flow of time in the mountain of time, while the spring of the past could only be seen by reversing the flow of time in the mountain of time. At the risk of being hunted down by Nineteen ghostly sage, Yi Chen obtained the spring of the past. The spring of the past was in essence a special power of time and space. To ordinary supremes, it was undoubtedly a poison. Only Yi Chen, who had perfected the space ultimacy, dared to touch it. To restore Red Lotus Ghostly Lord's memories, the spring of the past alone was not enough. The stone of 3 lives was the most important. Yi Chen had once negotiated with Phoenix Ghostly Sage, hoping to trade for the stone of 3 lives, but the other party had rejected him outright, and even destroyed one of his projections as a warning. Later, Yi Chen found out that the stone of 3 lives was more precious than he had imagined. It was a divine object that could only be encountered by chance. In this way, Yi Chen suddenly had no other way. Relying on martial power, he was simply not Hell Ghost Sage's opponent. Not to mention him, even White Extreme Sword Saint and Demon Saint Gallo would not dare to be arrogant in hell, as they would be in danger of being chased down at every turn. "Forget it, this is beyond my ability." Yi Chen shook his head and began to consider another matter. Su Jing's martial path primordial spirit had successfully entered the bronze level and was qualified to enter the chaos battlefield. Morong Chingching's martial path primordial spirit was a little special, and required a type of darkness crystal to break through, which could only be found in the demon's domain. Of course, some unknown secret realms of darkness should also have them, such as the dark galaxy that Yi Chun had once entered. However, these places could not be found easily. It depended on luck. Yi Chun planned to enter the demon's domain alone, although there was a high chance of encountering Devil Sage Kala. He reckoned that even if he could not defeat the other party, he should be able to escape successfully. Demon's Domain, Maelstrom Mystic Realm. The Maelstrom Mystic Realm was one of the top 5 supreme mystic realms in the demon realm. Only those with the strength of a powerful supreme being could enter it. If ordinary supreme beings entered, the death rate would be as high as 10%. 10,000 years ago, an ordinary supreme being died in the Maelstrom Mystic Realm. On this day, an uninvited guest came to the Mystic Maelstrom. Quite a strong pressure. As soon as he entered the secret dimension, Yi Chun immediately felt a powerful force pressing down on him. He was unable to shake it off. Thankfully, the effect was not too great. In the center of the secret realm was a huge whirlpool. This whirlpool seemed to have been blessed by divine power, and could exist eternally. The darkness divine crystals came from this whirlpool. Every once in a while, it would spit out a certain amount of darkness divine crystals. Sometimes there would be more, sometimes there would be less. The interval between the time was also long and short. Not all of the darkness divine crystals that were spat out could be found. If no one found them in a short period of time, they would fuse with other objects, making it even harder to find. It's a human supreme being. He actually dares to run into the demon domain. He's really courting death. In the Maelstrom secret realm, 2 powerful supreme demons discovered Yi Chun, and one of them wanted to kill him. Are you crazy? That's Sword Sovereign Green Lotus. Run. The other supreme demons hurriedly pulled his friend away. Outside the Maelstrom secret realm, the 2 supreme demons still had lingering fears. How could they have imagined that Yi Chun would come to the demon domain? This was simply impossible. I almost died just now. The supreme demon who wanted to kill Yi Chun turned pale. If he had not been pulled away, he would definitely have rushed forward. Once he angered Yi Chun, he would have been killed with a single strike. Let's go and tell Lord Demon Saint that no matter how strong Sword Sovereign Green Lotus is, he is no match for Lord Demon Saint. That's right. It's precisely because of Sword Sovereign Green Lotus that we demons have been suppressed by the humans. We have suffered countless losses over the years. Since he dares to come to the demon domain, let's make sure he doesn't return. The 2 of them hurried to the area where Demon Saint Garo was. The humans had a sun, and so did the demons. However, the demon's sun was black. When it shone on the planet, it was dim, but not completely invisible. It was as if they had come to another world. Demon Saint Garo was a loner, so he didn't need to occupy a level 9 planet. Instead, he built a dark golden palace on a level 5 planet. The palace was huge, and there were no less than 10,000 palaces of various sizes. The entire planet was protected by a powerful dark force. Even a legendary supreme would find it difficult to break into this planet, let alone destroy it. What do you want? Before the 2 supreme demons got close to the planet, Demon Saint Garo's voice was already heard. One of them said respectfully, Lord Demon Saint, we found Sword Sovereign Green Lotus in the Maelstrom secret realm. We are here to report. Sword Sovereign Green Lotus? Demon Saint Garo was surprised. Is Sword Sovereign White Pole here? We didn't see Sword Sovereign White Pole. He shouldn't be here. The 2 of them were a little hesitant. If Sword Sovereign White Pole was hiding near Yi Chun, how could they find him? However, they thought that Sword Sovereign White Pole would not be so bored. In the palace, Demon Sage Gara frowned. In the entire universe, no one was a match for him other than the White Pole Sword Sage. The only one he was wary of was the White Pole Sword Sage. If the White Pole Sword Sage was not around, a mere Green Lotus Sword Sage would be nothing. Could this be a trap? Demon Saint Garo thought. Haha. Suddenly, Demon Saint Garo laughed. He felt that he was too cautious. So what if Sword Sovereign White Pole was here? Could one Sword Sovereign White Pole and Sword Sovereign Green Lotus defeat him? It was not an exaggeration to say that even two sword sovereigns would not be able to stop him. At most he could only escape. Good, you two have done well. In the palace, Demon Saint Garo's figure disappeared instantly. Crackle! With a wave of Yi Chen's hand, a large number of miscellaneous items exploded. This kind of explosion was from the outside to the inside. Once a darkness divine crystal appeared, Yi Chen would immediately control the power. There were many meteorites near the whirlpool. Every time Yi Chen waved his hand, he could destroy hundreds of millions of meteorites. If he used it without restraint, the area of destruction could be even larger. However, there would inevitably be a deviation in the control of the power. If he was not careful, he might destroy the darkness divine crystal that he had spent so much effort to find. Found one. Yi Chen was very efficient. Soon, he found a darkness divine crystal. However, it was not enough. The more the better. All of a sudden, Yi Chen sensed a wave of extremely powerful dark power approaching. Demon Saint Garo. Yi Chen looked into the depths of the space-time. In the entire demon realm, only Demon Saint Garo had such a powerful power. As expected, when Yi Chen found Demon Saint Garo also found him. Don't even think about escaping. Demon Saint Garo formed a seal with both hands and sealed the entire whirlpool. With his demigod power, he could totally do that. Why should I escape? Yi Chen sneered. He had been waiting for this day for a long time. He had long wanted to see the power of a beginner demigod. After all, he would meet more demigods in the battlefield of chaos. It was very important to know the power of a beginner demigod as soon as possible. Chapter 1420. After sealing off the secret realm, Demon Saint Garo's demonic energy burst forth. Clusters of black bubbles spread out endlessly. In the blink of an eye, everything within a radius of hundreds of thousands of miles was covered by these black bubbles. It was like a dream. The ninth realm, demonic bubble realm. Yi Chen's pupil shrank. How could he not see that Demon Saint Galo's realm was extremely rare? Every black bubble was like a world. Countless worlds were squeezing over. Even a beginner demigod would have to avoid it temporarily, and could only resist it with the realm of the same level. But Yi Chen was not a beginner demigod. Not daring to waste any time, Yi Chen operated his sword energy with all his might. In the next second, a huge green lotus appeared out of nowhere. With Yi Chen as the nourishment, it expanded crazily. Thousands of miles, tens of thousands of miles, hundreds of thousands of miles. When the green lotus expanded to hundreds of thousands of miles, Demon Saint Galo's demonic bubble realm had already covered over, and the two clashed. Boom! For a moment, the sun and the moon dimmed, and the sky changed color. The entire secret realm was shaking. What a powerful force! Yi Chen was blown away. In terms of realm, the Green Lotus Sword realm was no weaker than the demonic bubble realm. However, it depended on who was using it. Yi Chen's Yuan Shun was at the advanced silver level, while Demon Saint Galo's Yuan Shun was at the gold level. There was a difference of one level between the two. Therefore, the ninth realm that Galo had used was naturally more powerful than the Green Lotus Sword realm. What's going on? Demon Saint Galo's brows creased. His demonic bubble domain was extremely tyrannical. Once it broke through the opponent's domain, it would immediately explode on the opponent's body. Each black bubble was equivalent to a super bomb. Under the continuous explosions, no demigod would be able to withstand it. However, Yi Chen didn't seem to be injured at all, not to mention dying. Heavenly Saint armor! Suddenly, Demon Saint Galo's eyes brightened. Two beams of light shot at Yi Chen's body. He could feel the ripples of a Heavenly Saint weapon on Yi Chen's body. Thinking about it carefully, only a Heavenly Saint armor could help him defend against a demigod's attack. If it were someone else, there would be nothing left of them. Sword Venerable Green Lotus, hand over the Heavenly Saint artifact armor, and I can let you go. Demon Saint Galo's heart was burning with passion. As long as he could get his hands on the Heavenly Saint armor, he would be able to suppress Sword Saint Baiji. Most importantly, he would be entering the chaotic battlefield in a little over 1,000 years. A Heavenly Saint armor would be of great help to him, as it would allow him to defeat any beginner demigods. Demon Saint Gallo, do you think you can defeat me? Stabilizing his body, Yi Chen said. Hearing that, Demon Saint Gallo was stunned for a moment before he burst into laughter. He did not know whether he should call Yi Chen arrogant or naive. Yi Chen actually said that he, a primary demigod, could not do anything to him. This is the funniest joke I've ever heard. Fine. I'll let you know that the gap between us is not something that a mere heavenly saint weapon armor can offset. Although Yi Chen had withstood the impact of his domain, it was not his strongest attack. It could only be considered an ordinary attack. Dark Blood Claw. Without any warning, Demon Saint Gallo's palm passed through time and space. When it reappeared, it had turned into a black and red claw radiance, grabbing at Yi Chen. Everything within a radius of hundreds of thousands of miles was within the attack range of the claw radiance. So fast, Yi Chen thought that his reaction was fast enough. The golden soul gave him the reflexes of a demigod, but his body could not keep up. He was a fraction slower and could not dodge in time. Yi Chen crossed his arms in front of his body. Clang, the next moment blood-red sparks flew everywhere. Yi Chen's whole body was drowned in the blood-red sparks as he was shot out. He did not stop until he crashed into a continent millions of miles behind him, causing it to crumble. Impossible. With a wave of his claw, Demon Saint Gallo already knew the result. Apart from sending Yi Chen flying, this claw did not hurt him at all. He could not believe this. One had to know that the Dark Blood Claw was one of his ultimate arts. When he used it as a beginner demigod, no one below the level of demigod could block it. Could the Sky Saint Tool armor really be so powerful that it could even block the attack of a beginner demigod? Of course, he did not know that Yi Chen had also cultivated the Immortal sword body. Together with the Xianwu Saint armor, most beginner demigods could not hurt Yi Chen. Amidst the dust, Yi Chen raised his head. A red light flashed in his right eye, and a blood-red sword shadow shot out toward Demon Saint Gallo. It was a soul and will attack secret technique, Sword of Hell. Demon Saint Gallo did not manage to dodge it, and the blood-red sword shadow invaded his sea of soul. For a split second, Demon Saint Gallo felt dizzy. The scene before his eyes blurred, and even Yi Chen's figure became millions of times. Of course, it was only for a split second. In the next moment, Demon Saint Gallo returned to normal. As expected, the Sword of Hell can only stun beginner demigods for a split second. Yi Chen treated Demon Saint Gallo as a test subject. He would know the power of the Sword of Hell once he tried it on Demon Saint Gallo. The effect was not great, but it was not bad either. At least it could stun his opponent for a split second, which was better than nothing at all. In the future, when he encountered beginner demigods in the Chaos battlefield, it would be of some use. Damn it. Demon Saint Gallo, who had come back to his senses, snorted angrily. A black crow flew out from between his eyebrows and entered Yi Chen's Sea of Soul. Soul and will secret technique, Black Crow of Obliteration. If it was Yi Chen in the past, this Black Crow of Obliteration would have given Yi Chen some trouble. In terms of power, the Black Crow of Obliteration was no weaker than the Sword of Hell. Although the Sword of Hell contained Golden Soul power, Destruction Sword will, and Hell's will, the Black Crow of Obliteration lacked Hell's will. However, the one who cast the Black Crow of Obliteration was Demon Saint Gallo. Demon Saint Gallo's martial primordial spirit was at the gold level, so his control was more exquisite, and his attack was purer. As soon as the Black Crow of Obliteration entered Yi Chen's Sea of Soul, it exploded and turned into countless black crows flying everywhere. If it was someone else, their Sea of Soul would definitely not be able to withstand it. However, in Yi Chen's Sea of Soul, apart from the 3 great sword souls, there was also a drop of Rule of Water. This drop of Rule of Water only released some rule power, and the countless black crows were instantly turned into ashes, vanishing into thin air like phantoms. Demon Saint Gallo, I have a sword. Please take a look. Yi Chen did not plan to hide his strength. With his current strength, there was no need for him to hide his strength. The firmament sword was unsheathed, and the Rule of Water in his Sea of Soul rippled. Yi Chen swung the sword. Sword art of the Rule of Water, Sword of Waves. Rumble. The entire secret realm of the whirlpool shook violently, and endless waves surged toward Demon Saint Gallo. In the next moment, the waves turned into a blue sword light, slashing out angrily. Oh no! Demon Saint Gallo felt a hint of danger. He had a strong premonition that if he allowed the blue sword light to slash his body, he would definitely be injured, and even his origin would be damaged. This sword had already posed a threat to his life. His right arm lengthened and extended crazily, and his right hand continued to expand until it was hundreds of thousands of miles long. His right hand, which was covered in black and red light, grabbed the blue sword light, and the two collided. Chapter 1421. Outside the secret whirlpool realm, some supreme demons who had received the news rushed over and were communicating with each other. This Green Lotus swordsman is too arrogant. Humph, let's see how he can escape this time. The one who spoke was the legendary supreme demons, Giant Demon Venerable. Giant Demon Venerable had been very sullen for the past 20,000 years. He had been taught a lesson by Yi Chun, and the first Demon Venerable. Especially that time when he was taught a lesson by Yi Chun. He had almost lost his life. If it wasn't for Yi Chun's projection doppelganger, if it wasn't for Demon Saint Gallo destroying his projection doppelganger, he would have been dead for sure. This made him hate Yi Chun very much. However, with his strength, it was impossible for him to take revenge. Demon Saint Gallo, no one can save him. Sky Demon Sovereign inwardly nodded. To this day, he was not even the third head of the demon clan. Giant Demon Sovereign and First Demon Sovereign were already ahead of him. Seeing that Yi Chun, who used to be like an ant in his eyes, had already become an existence that he had to look up to, he couldn't help but feel somewhat envious. More and more supreme demons arrived, including the first Demon Venerable. Among them, only he had fought with Yi Chun, so he was the one who understood Yi Chun the most. However, when he knew that Demon Saint Gallo was going to fight with Yi Chun personally, he couldn't help but frown. Yi Chun was definitely the strongest opponent he had ever had in his life. He had never really suppressed him before, but he had been suppressed by him until now. Unfortunately, a Supreme Demon Venerable was a Supreme Demon Venerable after all. It was not easy for him to fight against a primary demigod. Boom, boom, boom. The huge secret whirlpool realm started to shake slightly. Even the people outside the secret whirlpool realm could feel it, which shocked them. The secret whirlpool realm was so huge that if a normal Supreme Demon Venerable didn't know the way, they could easily get lost in it. Even a powerful Supreme Demon Venerable would need 3 to 5 years to pass through the secret whirlpool realm. What made the secret whirlpool realm shake? In their opinion, Demon Saint Gallo should be able to recruit Yi Chun without any resistance. In the center of the secret realm, a huge blue-red light ball that was thousands of miles in size was born. In the next moment, the blue-red light ball expanded crazily, from thousands of miles in size to tens of millions of miles in size. And it was still expanding, as if it was going to devour everything and destroy the entire secret realm. As for Yi Chun and Demon Saint Gallo, they had long been devoured by the blue-red light ball. When the blue-red light ball expanded to hundreds of millions of miles, it finally exploded. The violent shockwave tore the space apart, and the dreadful blue-red energy leaked out through the space-time crack. What is this? Outside the secret realm, the supremes of the demons felt a strong tremor. All of a sudden, they saw countless beams of blue and red light shooting out from the secret realm. The entire secret realm was like a broken crystal filled with light, or a giant shining hedgehog, lighting up half of the demonic realm. So many darkness divine gems. Inside the whirlpool secret realm, Yi Chun's eyes brightened. The explosion of the blue-red light sphere had flattened everything within his line of sight, causing darkness god crystals to appear everywhere. However, the might of the blue-red light sphere was too great, and the majority of the darkness god crystals had been destroyed. Only 1% of the darkness god crystals had survived due to their proximity to the secret realm. Bearing the impact of the remaining energy, Yi Chun started to collect the darkness divine gems. With the Xianwu sacred armor, he seemed to have it easier than Demon Saint Gallo. But Yi Chun knew very well that although his defense was better than Demon Saint Gallo's, if the battle continued, he would definitely lose. First of all, The inability to use the water rule was a big problem. The water rule, yes, that was indeed the fluctuation of the water rule. What is going on? A Supremes can actually comprehend the water rule? This is something that most high-level demigods can't do. Demon Saint Gallo was dumbfounded. It was unbelievable. Even he couldn't comprehend the power of the rule. But Yi Chen did. He is just the Supremes. He can't endure the power of the rule for a long time. Demon Saint Gallo was a demigod after all, so he reacted quickly. Sword Lord Green Lotus die. Demon Saint Gallo formed a seal with both hands, and a dark red cage fell from the sky, trapping Yi Chen inside. Supreme Martial Art Dark Blood Cage. This move didn't have much power, and it was used to trap enemies. Even a low-level demigod wouldn't be able to escape in a short time. World Wander. Yi Chen frowned and quickly performed the space-time movement skill, trying to escape from the dark blood cage. However, what surprised him was that the World Wander, which had always been successful, didn't work. He seemed to be trapped in an invisible spider web, unable to leave the dark blood cage through space-time. Instead, he was trapped deeper and deeper, unable to get out. Humph! If this move of mine was so easy to break, I wouldn't have used it. Unless you can comprehend the power of the space rule, you won't be able to leave through space-time. Demon Saint Gallo was very confident in the dark blood cage. The space-time in the dark blood cage was broken, and breaking through space-time was even more difficult than breaking through the cage. Moreover, he already knew that Yi Chen's space and time ultimacy had reached perfection. How could he make such a mistake? As long as he could trap Yi Chen, he would be able to defeat him slowly. Amazing. It's also a supreme martial art, but when a low-level demigod uses it, it's flawless. Yi Chen praised in his heart. But it's far from enough to make me surrender. Yi Chen laughed, and his whole body suddenly turned into a waterman. The next moment, the waterman dashed to the edge of the dark blood cage. As if he was going through a wall, he passed through the dark blood cage and appeared outside. Law of Water Martial Art. Water Travel Art. After comprehending the water law, Yi Chen could borrow the water law of the heaven and earth to appear anywhere. Nothing could stop him, unless the opponent had also comprehended the power of law. This was the perverse aspect of the power of law. It had the ability to surpass everything else. Demon Saint Gallo, see you later. After escaping from the dark blood cage, Yi Chen didn't remove the waterman form. With a flash, he disappeared without a trace. Demon Saint Gallo's seal seemed so laughable. This kid has grown. Forget it. Demon Saint Gallo was disappointed. He knew that from now on, he couldn't do anything to Yi Chen. Yi Chen's research on the law of water was not shallow, and he had even created the water travel art. Although he was a demigod, as long as he didn't comprehend the power of law, he couldn't do anything to the water travel art. Of course, if he reached the mid-level demigod level, he might have a chance. After removing the seal, Demon Saint Gallo came out of the Whirlpool secret realm. Lord Sword Venerable Green Lotus, he? The Supreme's demons didn't know what happened inside, so Sky Demon Venerable asked. Demon Saint Gallo waved his hand. From now on, don't provoke Sword Venerable Green Lotus, or you'll have to bear the consequences. After saying that, Demon Saint Gallo disappeared in front of everyone. Don't provoke Sword Venerable Green Lotus? Everyone looked at each other. Obviously, Demon Saint Gallo couldn't do anything to Yi Chen, and Yi Chen escaped. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.